Chapter 2, The Spiritual Backdrop. This search after great men, says Emerson, is the dream of youth and the most serious occupation of manhood. Nothing gives us such pleasure, nothing is so wholesome as to find out the hidden depths of a hero's soul. Therefore, it is that which we dive into old records with the accumulated dust of centuries. And therefore we toil and moil noting down events, jotting down anecdotes that help us to write the biography of a great man. Indeed, it is a rare privilege to know a great man. Difficulties meet us at every step to clear what is mysterious. Want of proper materials thwarts us in our attempt to see the real man. But whence would man derive strength and gather courage to fight out the battle of life, which is really a very serious business if we are to live like men, and if we really feel the responsibility of a man? The whole world is upheld by the veracity of good and great men. They make the earth wholesome. So they who come in contact with great souls find life happy and fruitful. Life is sweet and tolerable only in our belief in such society. Thus we see myriads of souls are carried aloft as if on the wings of a bird to undreamt of heights by the influence of the life and character of a great man. It is inexpressibly comfortable to know a great man, to see into him, to understand his goings forth, to decipher the whole heart of his mystery, and view the world altogether as he views it. We have attempted here to write the life of one such man, whose individuality and personality outshone many of his compatriots and contemporaries. Here is a life so unique and so very spiritual, such as we seldom come across in these days of gross worldliness and materialism. The man himself is greater than all his works, hence it has been our intention to depict him as best we can by the light he shed around him, by the work he did for the advancement of humanity. It has been my attempt in these pages to draw out the real man as Swami Abhedananda was. His life passed in uniform tranquility. His life was a life of growth and progress, as I have tried to show. It was a steady growth, rising step above step, higher and higher in the scale of spiritual perfection. The aim of every biography is to bring out the real spirit of the man, and the detailed events of his life are so far important as they help us to show the real man. A genuine spiritual life is the most beautiful thing on earth, and the noblest self-expression of the Spirit of God in creation. It is the living embodiment of what the artist is in his highest effort, tries to express with pencil or in words. The true spiritual life proceeds from the conscious communion of the human soul with the Supreme Soul, or Atman. We will see in the life we are just going to narrate to what perfection this communion can reach. Indeed, the life of this great religious preacher was a perfect blend of keen intellectual penetration with profound spiritual depth, a rare combination in a great spiritual character. Characters are born, so goes the popular belief. But even then, environment, association, paternal care, and discipline at a certain period of one's childhood, when the mold of oneself is on the anvil, have got so much to do with its building true and wholesome and indefatigable throughout life, manifesting at every opportunity that moral force, refinement, and spiritual sublimity which make human beings akin to gods. The second day of October 1866 had been such a personage into birth, who became a religious teacher of international repute and a great spiritual figure of the century. This was no other than Swami Abhedananda, the great interpreter of the universal doctrine of Vedanta. Character results from character, as life from life. There is no spontaneous generation in the moral any more than in the physical world. We shall find the truth of this process as we behold the panorama of the unique life we are about to relate. But before we narrate the story of his life, let us take an objective view of the time and environments in which Swami Abhedananda was born as Kali Prasad Chandra. It is of the first importance when writing the biography of any man to describe his environment, the circumstances and times in which he lived and flourished. Taken care of by the tenderest and most loving and most virtuous of parents, surrounded by the affection of the most gentle and affectionate of brothers and sisters, loved and sympathized by all friends, actuated by one great aim of life, namely the culture and glorification of the immortal spirit within, Kali Prasad grew up. The time in which he flourished was a period of transition in every sphere of life. A true picture of it has been given by P.C. Manzumdar in the following words. The light of Western education has dispelled the darkness of ignorance and superstition of ages, under whose yoke the country groaned for centuries past. The culture of the science of the West has freed the Indians from the tyranny of antiquity. A new life seems to pulsate everywhere. A new feeling seems to inspire all as we reap the plenty harvest of Western science and civilization, literature and culture. Yet there is a dark side of the picture, the most gloomy that can agitate the breast of a patriot. This is the goddess or godless education of the West. Cast adrift from the safe moorings of a fixed faith of our forefathers, the minds of men are tossed about by tremendous doubts and obstinate questionings, till at last skepticism and agnosticism, with wide gaping mouths, seems to devour us all. The age in which we live is not heroical, devotional, philosophical, or a moral age, but a mechanical one. Men are grown mechanical in head and in heart, as well as in hand. It is admitted on all sides that the metaphysical and moral sciences are falling into decay, while the physical are engaging every day more and more of our attention. The whole metaphysics itself, from Locke downwards, is not a spiritual philosophy, but a material one. There is no philosopher nowadays like Socrates or Plato to inculcate the infinite worth of religion, the great truth that our happiness depends on the mind within and not on external circumstances. The world has even been made great not by mechanical contrivance, but by dynamical ones, by making use of the inward primary powers of men. Science and art, poetry and philosophy have all been the free gifts of nature. The divine spirit of religion rises in the mystic depths of the human soul and flies like hallowed fire from heart to heart, purifying and illuminating all. Religion is no longer a thousand voices like a psalm from the heart of man to his maker, the fountain of all goodness, beauty, and truth, but a wise, prudential calculation of profit and loss grounded on economy and utility. The tendency of the age is purely materialistic, and as Professor Blackie says, the madness of externalism. The truth is, we have lost sight of the only aim of this precious human life. Man with an immortal spirit, man in the image of his maker, namely culture and advancement of the spirit within through moral perfection and religious training. If India is ever destined to take her place among the nations of the earth, if India is again to gain back her most glorious position as the spiritual leader of nations, if ever she be called upon to rise up to that exalted position that she occupied in the past as the light to show to all other nations of the world, then she must do it again by her spiritual advancement. India is preeminently the land of spiritual culture. Her sons were great only through their spirituality. Her Himalayas, with peaks crowned with eternal snow, her deep forests, her rivers flowing to the oceans of liquid silver, still give proof of her deep spirituality. Neither Swami Vivekananda nor his spiritual brother, Swami Abhedananda, were wrong when both of them uttered from many a platform that India is the cradle of spirituality in the world, and it is her privilege to teach the highest spiritual wisdom to the world. Such was the condition of the country when Kali Prasad grew up, and his heart bled to see her condition, just as the heart of his master, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa, had bled before Kali Prasad was born. Men do not believe in the existence of human soul. It has become synonymous with stomach or some fine chemical salt, as Carlyle significantly calls it. As Voltaire and his friends called religion a superfluity and a nuisance, so we care not much for religion, think it not worth our while to devote our time and attention to it. The torch kindled by the light of Western science has really helped to clear the jungles of superstition. But now in its place there is an arid desert with no verdure to cheer the spirit up. Thus fares our country. The great religious leader Keshav Chandra, commenting on this onslaught of Europe's haughty civilization, said, "Europe, desist. You have carried this warfare too far." And it was just at the same time that the saint of Dakshineswar, Ramakrishna, proclaimed with unfaltering voice, "Where will men find rest and peace if there be no religion? How will men bear the cross of life if there be no God to give us strength? How to suffer the various ills of life if we lose faith in life eternal?" All these Kali Prasad felt, though brought up in such a time when materialism ran rampant and was making a dire havoc of the cherished institutions of the country. Yet his soul, as we shall see later on, was not in the least touched by these vicious tendencies, but matured in the lap of religion, guided by an ideal before him. He was true to his Indian instinct. With all his Western education and culture, he remained truly Indian, given to religious thoughts and meditations from the earliest dawn of his consciousness. A harmonious development of being is the first and last object of true culture. This was surely obtained in the life of Swami Abhedananda. A close study of his life and spiritual attainments revealed the truth that his life was an example of harmonious development and growth. As he grew in wisdom, so he grew in purity and love. According to the testimony of his numerous followers and admirers in Europe and America, Abhedananda had a loving heart. He felt for all, he prayed for all, and we can express it no better than in the lines of Goldsmith, who said, "As a bird each fond endearment trees, to tempt its new-fledged offspring to the sky, he tried each art, reproved each dull delay, altered to brighter worlds, and himself left the way." A lover of truth, a seeker of supreme knowledge, Abhedananda was yet kind and tender, just yet forgiving, a strict maintainer of principle, yet not harsh or opinionated. Thus all the noble virtues that make a man an angel, that go to make a man God on this earth, were blended in sweet harmony in his nature, almost from the beginning of his childhood days. Vainly do we seek for another such in the world of vice and selfishness. Simultaneously with the culture of intellect, he tried to rise higher and higher in the scale of spiritual perfection. Intellectual culture was to him only a means to an end, but all his efforts and struggles, his aspirations and energies were for spiritual growth. And well might one say in justice to his sacred memory that he attained what he aspired after and gained that for which he had struggled and tried. It is a sweet and serene face which is forever hidden under a veil, never to be penetrated. Invisible to the eye of flesh, Abhedananda sits in glory in the land of everlasting bliss, in the company of the saints and sages of all ages and all times. If the outward life of this patriot saint of India was crowded with events, his inner life was crowned with realization, seldom found in the lives of men with religious aptitude almost from his boyhood days. I am a humble spiritual son of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna. So said Swami Abhedananda, and this simple utterance of his forms the key to the understanding of his greatness and the purpose of his life. Men like Abhedananda are not born frequently, but they appear on the arena of the world only after a cycle of ages. But when they appear, they fulfill some lofty purpose in the economy of providence. Abhedananda rose to his eminence from insufficient beginnings. The germs of genius were undoubtedly in him from the earliest years. But the circumstances which called forth his powers were such as happened only to a chosen few in the latter part of the 19th century, when the spiritual horizon of Bengal was lit up with one luminous soul, a God-intoxicated man, now known throughout the world as Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa. There was deep disturbance in the huge mass of native society long before Kali Prasad was born. The forces that worked together to cause this disturbance are now well known to the students of Renaissance in Bengal. The reaction was so great that our fathers had been for some time mentally convinced of the unsoundness of orthodox images. Their sons wanted to cast aside altogether every restriction, to eat and drink and live as they chose. The Christian missionaries, the company officials, the youthful journalists, the unfledged reformers, all united to raise a war cry against caste, and the entire population of our colleges and schools joined the crusade. It meant the introduction of the European luxuries of food and drink, the free and easy ways of the West, the abolition of social discipline, of the exactions of Brahmin priests, and the impecunious relatives. Excessive indulgence in the use of alcoholic liquors characterized the educated community. Concomitant vices showed themselves, and premature mortality began to rage amongst the rising generation. The emancipation of women began to be talked about, and here and there the doors of the zenana were flung open. To make the long story short, all notions of moral danger promulgated by the ancient Hindu teachers were set aside as old-fashioned and pernicious. Not only this, philosophers of the skeptical and agnostic school, scientific opponents of religion and morality, the apostles of utilitarianism, and the materialistic professors of nescience and so-called positivism overspread the land with their teachings. In every shape, in books, magazines, newspapers, through men who filled public posts, and some of whom even occupied chair in educational institutions. These teachings found their way among young men. The ancient scriptures of the country, the famous records of the spiritual experiences of the great men of various Hindu sects, had long since been discredited. The Vedas and Upanishads were sealed books. All that we knew of the immortal epics, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, of the Bhagavad Gita, were from the execrable translations into popular Bengali, which no respectable young man supposed to read. The whole religious literature of ancient India presented an endless void. Our young reformers studied Paine's Age of Reason to get fresh ideas on the subject of religion. There were, of course, some men who deplored this strange transition from extreme stagnation to headlong self-indulgence. But they were too effete to resist the tide. And what is worse, neither the missionaries nor their converts showed any inclination to protest against the tide of corrupt, civilized self-indulgence, which upset the character of the rising generation. The Brahmo Samaj of the time, it may be noted, exercised a very considerable influence in shaping the destiny of the generation. But as a social and spiritual force that would sway the destinies of the nation, the Brahmo Samaj did not only manifest, but did not possess any indication of a revolutionary vitality. The man who was destined to provide the Hindu society with the desired vitality appeared in the personage of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa. According to Swami Abhedananda, one of his chosen disciples, he said, Sri Ramakrishna came to give to the world something which is greatly needed in the 20th century. The great renunciation of Gautama Buddha was certainly unparalleled, but there is another phase of renunciation which was never performed by any avatar or great teacher of the world. Sri Ramakrishna conquered all attachment to wealth and women, greed and lust, not by running away from them, but by living in their midst and yet rising above them. Indeed, when the saint of Dakshineswara, who is now universally regarded as the embodiment of the highest spiritual truth, appeared, there dawned a new era of synthesis and harmony in religion and philosophy.